Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our live from Shakti Wellness. We're here to talk. We have another practitioner that will be joining us soon. But in the meantime, me and Shay will get the party started for everybody. But if you're just not tuning in, I know you may be on lunch break. Uh, not share it with some friends. Share it to different people that you feel could benefit from today's conversation that we may be having. Welcome all of those that are coming in. Today's topic, this what we wanted to do was basically a little chat with everybody. Hey, love, and talking about trauma and a little bit of how we approach it here at Ashakti Wellness and our approach to trauma. But just in general, it's a topic that is impacting many of us at this point in time. And many of us are not aware of that we're walking with traumas. So, welcome to this Facebook Live, coming from Ashakti Wellness in Charlotte, North Carolina. So, today a couple of the practitioners just want to come in and talk about trauma and be able to answer any questions. And of course, Ashakti Wellness is about holistic health. So, we approach things from a mind, body, and spirit approach in order to heal. And so if you have questions about that approach, or if you're experiencing different things that, don't know how to get through it, or a lot of times we're going to talk about trauma, how it shows up that you may not even realize that you are dealing with trauma symptoms. So I'm Asha. I am the owner, CEO of Shakti Wellness, holistic energy practitioner, clinical energy practitioner. And my role here is want to provide education to the masses about different ways to heal, how to really take accountability for your own healing. And that's often we give our power away to outside or someone sometimes. And that's where we get stuck in this loop of feeling like we're not resolving things. So in all aspects, part of the approach of the Shakti Wellness is understanding the combination of your emotions and your body and how they interact and how they work together. But often we live a fragmented world where we're living in pieces and we have different approach in our healing that sometimes gives us more anxiety than the aspect of trying to heal. So that's kind of what our approach and what we want to talk about. And I'm let Shay introduce herself and how she's such a big asset to the agency and how we offer a holistic.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Shay White Joseph from Rock Hill, South Carolina, and I have a medical background as a physician assistant in several areas: internal medicine, family practice, women's health, pediatrics, and urgent care. And now I practice as a medical intuitive or medical consultant, integrating my medical background into a realm that's more holistic, where we will allow our bodies to be able to heal themselves naturally like they're designed to do. And it's like Asha said, trauma is a big, important part of our everyday life. A lot of people are walking around and are not aware that their reactions, their mindset, their health, even their health, is a result of trauma, some form of trauma, whether it's childhood, adulthood, um, uh, anything negative that may have impacted them in a huge way. So it's our job as holistic practitioners to bring awareness to how trauma affects the body. And on my end, I will be addressing how it affects the body when it comes to ailments, illnesses, diseases, discomforts in the body. And so that we can all collectively be able to examine ourselves, examine our own lives, in a way that we can be able to break apart, analyze, and come up with healing results as to how to move forward and get past the trauma so that we can feel better, mind, body, and spirit.
Yes, yes, and that's I think that's where we want to start this. Or first, just given we're not here to do a full fledged workshop, but it's more or less just bringing awareness. This October is mental health awareness month. All of a sudden, Shay, Mother Oya is again is blue. It was all calm. Now we started talking. I hear it. Let's see. We have Aisha, our other therapist, that is joining us today. Hi.
Hi, girl.
In at the right time as we were introducing ourselves. So just let the world know who you are, and we'll go from there.
My name is Aisha L. I am a holistic mental health therapist, Reiki practitioner, and a dancing mindfulness facilitator.
And she's also certified in EMDR. We'll talk about that a little later for those who are clinicians or those who seek in different modalities to help with trauma. So before we start, one thing that we incorporate is just being mindful. So since we're about to discuss a topic that could be a trigger for some people, I just wanted to take the time to take 3 breaths. And often throughout life, we don't take time to breathe. And being mindful, being present is very key. And sometimes just taking 3 breaths is all we need. So even if you're driving, I don't ask you to close your eyes. And, I know how y'all be saying, I should say it, but I ain't say that. But if you would just take a moment and, you can take a breath whenever. You don't have to go and be away and mad because people are making noise around you. Sometimes taking a breath is how you center. So if you are able to close your eyes, just close your eyes for a moment and just be conscious of the now. And take a nice deep breath in through your nose and release. Take another nice deep breath in through the nose. Release out. On the last breath, as you take a deep breath in, breathe in, and think about all the things that no longer serve you that you wish to release. And on that exhale, release it out. All right. All right. That's always a good way to shake things off to get started before we enter into things. So we just want to talk a little bit about trauma. And this is very important because many of us, we live in trauma that sometimes we don't even realize that we're traumatized. And I even ask that because often when I work with clients as they come into my sessions, I always ask them, have you experienced trauma? And it's interesting on how many say, no, I'm good. And then as we talk, all of a sudden things began to become aware that they never thought was trauma because it became part of their day-to-day condition response. So that trauma became attached in the present. And sometimes we don't realize how if we don't release the trauma or acknowledge the trauma, it's hard to heal from it. And often with trauma is something that is we suppress it depending on your upbringing, depending on your culture. And sometimes it's not a point of worrying or dealing with that. You got to keep moving. And that's how we talk a little later about how trauma can. All right. We know Mercury is in retrograde, so if we pop out, just stay with us. We'll pop back in. But one thing I want to understand when we talk about a formal definition of what trauma is. Trauma, according to the American Psychological Association. See how Mercury want to act today?
They don't want the truth to get out.
Keep speaking. It's too much energy. We got 3 Reiki practitioners on here, and it's
yeah, it's on now.
Too much energy.
Yeah.
Too much, because they know as people listen, understanding energy, you're gonna get some feeling from this conversation, regardless. So it's all good just for the energy of it. But and going to formality and the clinical definitions of when we talk about what trauma is, according to the American Psychological Association, a trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event like an accident, rape, or natural disaster. All right. So understand when we say that trauma is an emotional response. So therefore, in understanding trauma, the only way to heal trauma is to deal with the emotions. If you're suppressing it, there's no way to heal. And then that's when it comes up into surface of physical ailments, because what is going to occur, that emotional response is going to find a way to deal with things. And sometimes it begins to fight your body. That's where a lot of times autoimmune diseases come in. And it could be a suppression of trauma. Shay, I think you was wanting to comment on that.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, when you speak of emotions, with trauma being a form of emotions, emotions in essence is a form of an energy, and being that everything is created of energy, what we take in affects us on a cellular level, and when it affects us on a cellular level, it impacts our DNA and starts to restructure something that is pure and natural and performing at 100% proficiency into something that's damaging. And once that cellular level is functioning and it attacks the central nervous system, being that it's in direct communication with the brain, takes that impulse, that emotional trauma impulse to the brain, restructuring the brain. And whatever part of the brain that is affecting, it's going to affect our organs, our bodily system. Therefore, we fall into the autoimmune disease. We fall into hypertension. We fall into skin issues, problems with your vision, chronic pain such as fibromyalgia. So it's important to be able to um, practice more mindfulness, being present and focused, not relying on emotions, and your current emotions, because all of us are dealing with some form of traumatic emotional injury in some form of another. It might be a little bit, you might categorize it as minimum, and some people fall in the category where it's huge for them. So we have to, in essence, be able to be mindful, see things from different perspectives, um, offering love and kindness to one another, and so that we can heal collectively. It's
Yeah.
important to be able to see things, see people's situations, whether it's their reactions or their words that come out of their mouth, or even the thoughts that we have in our mind, see them from a perspective that this
Yeah.
person may be dealing with something. And instead of lashing back out, we should come from an arena of love so that
Hmm.
we can, because it might be hard for that person to be able to tackle whatever issues they're dealing with when it comes to emotional trauma. So it's important for an outside force, which would be
Right.
another
Yeah.
person, to be able
And,
to administer love and forgiveness. And love and forgiveness, that's a form of energy as well as, and that can issue healing as well. We just got to
right.
get to the bottom line of it. The bottom, the
And I think,
bottom.
like
Go
what
ahead.
you're
Mhm.
saying, within that, in that part of healing and being understand, I think that the frustrating part for many is not knowing that a person has dealt with the trauma if the
Right,
person is not acknowledging that they have had a trauma. So
right,
then it kind of becomes a counteractive, sometimes co-abusive in some aspect, because of one, it still goes back to what you said, not understanding the emotional regulation of how to process the trauma,
right,
and
right,
with trauma you feel it. And that's why,
right,
and sometimes in dealing with trauma, talk therapy does have its benefits, as a
right,
clinician. But a lot of times, if you in pain, say chronic pain, you're not wanting to talk. It's hard to
right,
get to the root before you got to deal with the body before you can deal with the root aspect of it. But those type of traumas that are the subtle, we sometimes we can say the chronic lifetime of things, and we don't realize that it's still trauma that builds up and not being able to identify. I want to show a slide right quick of helping people to understand what trauma looks like, because many times you may be walking around with it or dealing with it and don't even know it. So trauma responses can look like cravings. A lot of times that we see people, the weight that people are dealing with sometimes is due to emotional cravings due to past traumas. Um, Trauma responses can look like agreeing to things to just keep the peace, always feeling guard on the time. You view the world as negative, dysfunctional, you don't trust anybody. You're feeling responsible for other people's happiness. You want to fix everybody, always saying yes because you're afraid of losing a sense of security or someone being mad. Always feeling empty, just not really having that joy in life, and sometimes just giving in to certain impulses, because in some aspect with trauma responses, you still may be giving your power to the situation that caused the trauma. And I know that for people that deal with trauma, it's one of the most frustrating things that people can never understand sometimes, how you respond and how you feel to trauma. On the outside, you're looking normal, but on the inside, your body is responding to a situation that is causing intense distress, and it's kind of hard to put it in words. Um, Shay, you were
But with,
talking about the brain. When we talk about trauma response, we have to understand when trauma impacts us, it's an emotional response, and it impacts portions of our brain. Shay, if you know the medical, you go in. Can you briefly explain how that works in the brain with our sympathetic nervous system, and how that, as you see on this chart, different parts of trauma can have different impact, whether it's anxiety or worry or irritability and anger, and that whole process? Explain a little bit about the brain and how trauma impacts. And when I say trauma, again, y'all remember, even though the definition said like natural disasters or a tragic event or violence, you can still have trauma from things like abuse that is more verbal and emotional abuse as well. You can have trauma from secondary trauma. And I say that even to those who dealt with people that have seen parents or loved ones just in general around you die. That is a form of trauma, because trauma is also a perception of what you feel as life or death. So
yeah.
once that imprint of whatever that situation that has occurred, I know my family trip out at me, and anybody that rides with me, or Shay, you found out, you would have thought I was joking about brake lights. Let me tell you, I don't care. Y'all try to minimize my PTSD off of brake lights and tell me I'm crazy. That's a good thing. You minimize my trauma, but brake lights shut me down. I would be on the highway, and if I see brake lights too close in front of me, or it could be 5 cars in front of me, I'm slowing down. That
And
makes
I
me
think I
feel
was traumatized by her trauma.
right, right. You want to put me out the car. But
Like,
it's
can I
that thing is
pull over?
real, because I laugh because it's been years and everybody get frustrated with me and want to say, get over that. It's been a long time. And it was just a minor car accident. And I always say, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to feel like I'm seeing an accident happen all over again, all of a sudden my body. So what happens with that within the brain briefly, Shay?
Well, I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible because there can be a lot of big terminologies that our audience won't be able to understand. So, and if there's anyone who don't understand, please feel free to just kind of cut me off and just ask questions as I go along. When we picture the brain, let's just picture it as a three-part section. We have our frontal cortex, it's mainly our forehead, and then we had our midbrain directly in the middle of our head, and then we have our brainstem at the back, and that's connected to our central nervous system. Central nervous system is composed of two important components: the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. The sympathetic is what you see up here: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. How we respond to emotional trauma, how we respond to our emotions, whether it's anger, sadness, being frightened or scared, um, uh, happy, even just being in a state of bliss. And the parasympathetic is what helps us to relax and to be calm. And these two have to be in homeostasis with the body. These two have to be in constant harmony, a constant balance between the two. But when you've experienced trauma of any sort, anything that puts you in an emotional state of feeling scared, angry, um, having a low self-worth, low self-esteem, it directly affects the central nervous system, especially the sympathetic part of it. And what it does is that it immediately sends these chemical reactions, this energetic chemical reactions, straight up to the brain, and then it just kind of explodes. It explodes almost like a shotgun. I like to use the analogy of a shotgun going off, and once the shotgun hit its target, the bullets kind of fragment in different places. And that's what emotional trauma does to our brain. And being that our midbrain is the section of our brain that's responsible for, I want to say, close to 96% of our bodily functions. Just imagine trauma sitting up in that brain like shrapnel, like pieces of fragments of a bullet. You can't put it back together because you don't know how. That actually affects how our hormones are released in our body to cause our body to function properly or not. It starts to, and if that part of the brain, if that trauma is not healed and that part of the brain continuously is affected, then your internal organs, your state of being starts to deteriorate slowly. And you might be walking around thinking, okay, well, I had trauma, but my doctor says I'm in good health. But what you're carrying within you is latent disease, latent illness, which means that it's not surfaced yet, but it's going to surface. And when it hits you, it'll hit you hard at some point or another in your life. So that's why it's important to address certain things that you have been dealing with or not dealing with, hiding it, brushing it under the rug, putting on pretense or mask that everything is good when you know that you had some childhood trauma, or maybe you were raped or disrespected or talked down to constantly, verbal abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. So what that does is that um, uh, it really destroys, not destroys slowly. Destroys the brain, that mid part of the brain slowly in those areas, because each side of our brain is responsible for different parts of our body. But when it sits up in the midbrain, and that's responsible for the majority of our bodily functions, just imagine this could be the reason you're struggling with chronic pain. This could be the reason you have hypertension. This could be the reason you have diabetes. This could be the reason you have cancer or any other life-threatening illnesses, because you're holding on to past trauma. With me, when I tend to go back and think about things that have happened to me, and I'm wondering why, and if something comes up that reminds me of trauma that happened years ago, I immediately have the same response I did today that I had 30 or 40 some years ago, because I hadn't dealt with that particular issue. And I'm only learning this now, and a lot of people don't know that. Your midbrain don't know the difference between something that happened 30 years ago and something that's happening now.
Right.
So when
And
you
that's the thing with trauma is the
yeah,
person feels it and they're frustrated because they're like,
exactly.
this happened a long time ago.
Right,
Why am I experiencing it now? And often,
right,
and as many, when we're experiencing, depending on the trauma, because there's so many different trauma, we got those that, have been at war and had certain traumas from that aspect. But in general, certain traumas, if you're ashamed of that trauma, you're not going
yes,
to talk about the trauma.
right,
And
right,
then it becomes layers and layers, whether it begins with addictions to help deal with the feelings of emptiness and things of that nature. So we have to be aware and honor, not think of trauma as a shame, because
right.
that's the healing problem. I think going back what you say, forgiveness of self and forgiveness of the others as well, depending on what your trauma
Right,
was. And
right.
understanding what I'm seeing now, and I'm going to let Aisha talk about what she's seeing. The whole thing with COVID is re-triggering many. It's causing trauma, but it's also re-triggering some past things that may not have been resolved and bringing things to the surface within families and family dynamics. But as a therapist now, it's really, even after any client has experienced a serious case of COVID or family members, I really find myself almost having to do trauma type therapy, because many have attached, or because of the circumstances with COVID, as a life threatening situation. So in that case, if that's something you fear that can kill you or is life threatening, it's an emotional response. So
Yes,
there are a
fear.
lot after that. We have to do a lot of the after, because if they're oh, COVID, I'm about to die, or I may
Yes,
die, your brain all of a sudden, like you said, that overwhelming of it, or
yes,
seeing a family member, or even those or dealing with that in the grief that at that time could not go to the hospital to be there with their family member that is dying from COVID. So having that lack of resolvement within that, for many, if they don't realize, that's traumatic. And
and see,
so
the root cause is fear.
you don't minimize your traumas, but honor that. And you have to go through the phases of grief within trauma as well sometimes. So that's just another thing I want to say, that so many are holding on to grief from
Yes,
situations that's been traumas. And now COVID can pop up even quicker from other stuff that hadn't been resolved, because your immune system may be weaker because of unresolved emotional stuff. So,
And when you speak of, it's not only grief, it's fear. You know, when you allow your portals to ingest all the stuff that's going on around us, you know, we're looking at stuff on the news, we're hearing about things, you know, um, it all feeds onto fear, and fear is an emotion as well. And then when you have fear coupled on with grief when it comes to this COVID, your body feels all of that, and then your
mhm,
body starts to struggle. So it's
mhm,
important to deal with the root cause of the fear, you know, deal with it, be able to reanalyze it, see it from a different perspective, or either conquer it yourself because you are in control of your own body. You know, your body actually speaks to you. Your body is actually able to tell you what's going on. Like, say, for instance, when I eat something that I know I'm not supposed to be eating, my body immediately tells me through my digestive tract. And that's
mhm,
just not elimination I'm speaking of. I start to feel either nauseous, I start to have heartburn, I start to feel bloated, I start to feel just sick on my stomach when your body talks to you like that. Or if you eat something that's too salty and you start to feel dizzy or you have a headache, that's your body speaking to you. Your body's
mhm,
so unique. But in today's society, we're so used to having someone else um, tell us what we need for our body, and when our body actually speaks to us, you know,
right.
and tells us what's going on, and we're quick to want to uh, be more open and willing to synthetic medication that's even trauma on the body, that has signals, that has energy.
Or
And if it's
surgeries,
synthetic,
that's
yeah,
traumas and
exactly.
things.
Surgeries, you want to run to surgeries and get cut open, that's trauma on your body. You you that shouldn't be. Um and I do mean, I don't want to undermine anyone who has gone onto surgery for things that, you know, were life threatening, but I'm speaking of um, issues such as gastric bypass, for an example. You know, there's ways to modify your body to reduce the weight without having to have your body cut on. The quick results. As people in this nation, this country, in this world, we're so um, ready and open to get quick results without doing the work. But it won't ever last if you don't do the work on yourself.
Do the
This
work.
important, yeah,
And
you
there's so
have
many
to,
layers to that when we talk about trauma of
yeah,
doing the work. Like you said, it's not even just the physical aspect. And we can go on, but it's the spiritual aspect of
right,
doing the work and also the mental aspect. We just
right,
have to feel safe enough to deal with our traumas. I think that because often we're being re-triggered day to day by different traumas, whether it's relationships, and we're not even
yeah,
going to go into the epigenetics of passing on traumas,
right.
or even ancestral trauma. So it's
Ancestral
so
traumas is a
many
biggie.
layers,
That
but
is a biggie. Yeah,
many of us are experiencing that. So in the here and now, Aisha, with a lot of the work you do and some of the techniques that um, you have learned to help others in dealing with trauma, what is it that you're seeing when it comes to trauma as a clinician, and what do you feel has been the best way of helping them? Because many of us, we get trained to be trauma informed and there's different modalities, but where do you see, and what is it that you could speak to others on what can assist them in dealing with their trauma?
Right. Well, for starters, most people don't know that they've experienced trauma because of the rigid definition of trauma. We think of PTSD like, oh, I didn't go to the war, so how can I have PTSD? How can I have this traumatizing experience if I've never experienced anything that was horrible, right? But it doesn't have to be anything big. If you grew up living in the hood and you heard gunshots every night, like you probably have PTSD.
mm-hmm.
That's trauma. But getting people to know what the real definition of trauma is and breaking down that word, or like with some people, they just don't want to use the word trauma because
Right,
Right.
comes with this stereotype. Oh, it's a mental health diagnosis. It's this, it's that. But really, it's just life. I don't know anybody walking this world who hasn't experienced some type of trauma. So just educating people on what trauma is and letting people, like creating a safe space for people to explore their trauma. Some people can explore it with just talk therapy. Some people need a little more than that.
And there's so much stigma when it comes to or mental health, or seeing a therapist. It has gotten a bad rap. It has a demeaning connotation. It People automatically think, especially people of of our Black and Brown community, they tend to equate it to being crazy or having something really mentally wrong with you, but that's not it. That's far from the truth. That's far from the truth. The bottom line is what our topic is about today. Each and every one of us have experienced some form of trauma in one way or another that has affected us. And it's important to be able to reach out and be brave enough to say, that was me. And I might be, the way my life is now might be a result of what I've gone through. Um, and if there's anyone tuning in that was not aware that, the reason why their life is not working out the way they want to, the reason why they're not getting along with their peers or their co-workers, or the reason why they can't stay in a relationship or whatever, might be due to something that's going on with either the person that's being affected or the one who's actually going through it themselves. And they're like, okay, that's me. Maybe that's something I need to talk about. Some people just disassociate themselves from the trauma as to say that it never happened to them. And then with us speaking on it today, they can actually, maybe it's kind of peeling off the scab or digging up old wounds to say, oh, you know what? I did go through this. Maybe this happened. You know, talking words are very powerful. Being able to talk to someone who understands, even if it's not a therapist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist, being able to talk to someone and having a listening ear can bring about healing. So I just think that's important to put out there, that mental health is nothing to be ashamed of. We all have a mentality. We've all had trauma. So it's important to be able to heal thyself through being able to face what happened to you or face the situation, and being able to reprocess it or coming up with a different perspective regarding it, so you can move forward in your life in health and healing when it comes to mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah. And I've come to see that, and even, as holistic practitioners, we deal a lot with the body and the mind. I even want to say that we have to even look at the whole thing when we talk about mind, body, and spirit, of releasing that forgiveness and going beyond yourself to do the healing, or even more of understanding of the vessels that we are and how we can heal ourselves, or take accountability of our healing. And one thing that when we say doing the work and doing the shadow work is not to minimize at some point in time that there may have been a trauma, but the shadow work is that's that part that you want to keep hidden. You don't want to acknowledge that it took place, that still sits there on your shoulder. And
Right.
that shadow, that pink elephant, however you want to say it, is what eventually can manifest into other illnesses. So it's
Right.
so very important that we honor the emotions, we honor the experiences, so that we can release our attachment. Because we're talking about energetic cords. It's an
Mm-hmm.
emotional response to a situation or imprint that we got at whatever situation that gave us that DNA imprint of this situation. When this happened, feel this way. It is a cord attached to that place, that person, thing, whatever it is that trauma occurred. So if we continue to react in it, we're still giving power to the source of trauma. So energetically, there are things that we have to honor within ourselves, of releasing the trauma cord, to go within, to honor that you need to be healed is the first thing of not, and healing. And when I say this, healing is daily, because a lot of things we've experienced
Right.
can be traumatic. So it's never saying,
Right.
we can't set ourselves up for failure to say
Right.
this is what healing looks like, because as long as
Right.
we're still these physical beings with spirit flowing through us, day to day is going to be healing and new awareness and new situations. So
Right.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
thing of honoring it so that it can come to surface, because on a spiritual level, if not, it's coming up. You
Yeah.
can do it the easy way, or you could do it the hard way.
Right.
And we're seeing now a lot of things are not just these earthquakes, it's not just these volcanoes. It is you as a human being that many are feeling like you're erupting.
Yeah.
Things are coming to the surface, whether you see it as
Yeah.
falling apart or falling together, a shift or a change. You may even be dealing with more physical symptoms than before. Pain may be more intense, certain physical responses, because it's a shift, it's awakening. And yes, when you're in pain, for those who deal with chronic pain, it's kind of hard to process some of this, and that's just trauma in itself. But it's still getting to the root to understand the power that you have to control it, to release it. It's seeing
Right.
things as a flowing vessel and not holding on to the pain, not holding on to the trauma. And that is why what we do at Ashakti Wellness is to help you process your pain in the whatever way that you feel you need to. So if it is talk therapy, talk to someone that you feel safe with. If it is movement, if it's yoga, if it's energy work to help get unblocked, sacred healing ceremonies, plant medicine. There's a whole nother topic of discussion of how certain plant medicines are able to heal what Shay was just talking about, those synapses, those disconnects of the brain that happen when you want to know how can we repair it. There are certain things that can begin to repair those aspects of your brain to help release that emotional response to the trauma. So this was, if anybody has any questions, I don't know if anybody's out there still listening us, we're just talking to ourselves, but if someone had questions, this is a good time if y'all want to ask us anything about what it looks like, what it feels like, what should you do, what you should not do, on working with trauma, or even those, I would say now, those people that work in the hospitals, that the first responders to, trust me, secondary trauma, police officers, secondary trauma, firemen, secondary trauma. When you see things that impact and in those jobs, what do you have to do in order to do that job effectively?
Yeah.
Tune it out in order to keep moving, and you can become emotionally blunted, emotionally disconnected, which can then carry over into relationship. Your partner may say, "You don't have any feelings. You don't get me. You don't understand what I'm feeling." They're seeing death daily. They can't connect back with the emotions that make them ineffective at their job. Does that family member understand that all they see now is rejection and a lack of connection where they need to feel safe and secure? So it's just another way of how trauma can impact and affect in so many different dynamics besides this physical, emotional relationships. And that's what secondary trauma can do. Dealing with a parent or someone that has a chronic illness or cancer and dying in front of you, that feeling of helplessness is a feeling of trauma. Being a witness to domestic violence as a child and can't do anything to help your parent.
Yeah.
That's traumatic. It's a feeling of helplessness. That again, that DNA imprint. And then you grow up, and then all of a sudden, one person can say something to you that takes you back to that childhood. But now as adult, you be like, oh no, I'm adult now. I've been down, and you go in fighting. You ready to fight the world like that 7-year-old that witnessed it but couldn't fight then, and they're looking at you like, what? What's wrong with you? You just went back to that 7-year-old and
Absolutely.
oh, right. That is how unresolved trauma can pop up. And then you having to explain, why did I fight you? And then if you're not ready to deal with the trauma, you can't really communicate why I fought you. It's more because I did. And they're like, so it gets real when you can't express those true emotions and how it comes out in relationships. So even in dating, we're talking about dating and trauma. I'm going to even say, Aisha, you may can co-sign with me. Even those who are married, I've dealt with couples that have been married for a period of time and their mate does not know about their trauma.
People are afraid of their trauma. People are afraid to heal from their trauma because they think, once I start talking about it, once I start going into this process, like I'm going to bring all these things back up, which is true. However, even if you never talk about it, it's going to show up. It's going to show up in your communication. It's going to show up in your physical responses, your emotional responses. So essentially, people are running and hiding from this trauma that you can't really hide from. It's going to come out one day.
But
Yep.
you know why? That's an important question. The important question behind it, so to speak, why are they afraid of it? Not only because they don't want to have to reface how it felt, but we live in a world today where everything is an illusion of perfection. And we want to be seen as somebody important. We want to be acknowledged. We want to be loved. So if we bring up our baggage and then that person knows about what we've been carrying and what we dealt with, then it's just gonna backfire on us, and we're gonna think, well, now they're gonna think I'm stupid. Now they're gonna think I'm crazy. Now they're gonna think I'm ugly. Now they're gonna think this about me. I already had my parents to tell me that. I already had the world to beat up on me and tell me I'm ignorant. Now I gotta bring all this stuff back up. When you thought I was perfect, now I gotta bring all this trauma up and tell you, and then you kind of
Right.
regress back into it. So it's an awful
And
feeling.
then
But
unfortunately, then that can lead to the codependency in the
exactly.
relationship. And even more unfortunately, where we see this cycle is not having that trauma dealt with early on can even lead to other of the traumas of ended up sometimes often in abusive relationships because of
Hmm.
not having that voice of knowing that self-power, you
That's right.
minimize what you feel or say in that.
That's
And I
right.
think that's
That's
the thing
right.
with trauma, feeling trauma, having a voice to speak it, but understand what you're feeling is the key. And whether it's a car accident, is one of the things of still not having somebody to say, "Oh, you should get over that." That's not traumatic. Just
Right.
because it wouldn't attract a tragedy to you for
Then
someone else, but being able to speak and feel honored. I think that's where the
absolutely,
trust comes in.
absolutely. And even when you mention codependency, that can be a form of a sub form of trauma as well,
Trauma
because you're relying on your spouse, your
to
partner,
feel
your
safe.
mate to validate you. And when you don't get that, it's like beating up on the same trauma all over again. So it's best to be able to talk about it and address it and face the truth, no matter how painful, how ugly it may be. Face it so that
Mhm.
you can move on and heal from it in some sense of way, whatever that healing may be for you. What works for one person may not work for the other, or it may. But it's important to be able to kind of take a step back,
Mhm. Mhm.
analyze the contents, analyze the contents of what the scenario is,
Mhm.
and be able to work through it in a manner that brings about healing for you and
Mhm.
that person as well. Because I personally feel
Even
that
if they don't know that you're
exactly,
doing healing, that's the forgiveness part on
exactly,
that where you feel the hurt, to do that
exactly.
forgiveness, to send that back. And I would even say that I want to express on how important of loving yourself is going to be the
Yeah,
key to healing from trauma. And because often we still absorb those words that impact or that feeling of, because after certain trauma, some people never say they feel normal. And when I say that's I'm going from women that may have had miscarriages, stillbirths. That's traumatic. And
Mhm.
sometimes they may say, I haven't been the same since then, but has it even been honored as a traumatic situation? I know that, and to get the necessary help, I know with the women's circle, we always talk about the doctor may ask, have you had any abortions, stillbirths, miscarriages? And women may say, oh, I've had a miscarriage and I got 4 kids, but never said they might have had 3 abortions because
exactly,
of the shame or guilt. And then that self is traumatic. So not realizing that in itself is an emotional response to a situation that can impact the wound, that can impact that energy center of creativity and feeling worthy and your self-esteem, your own value, which you hold on to that trauma and it manifests in relationship, it manifests in work, it manifests even deeper. So all we're saying is no, we're never minimizing trauma, but the whole part of healing is honoring yourself and what you're feeling to deal with the trauma. Trauma is not a label, but if we don't honor it, it becomes a generational thing, you guys. At some point in time, we have to start the self accountability so that we don't pass on the same traumas and not realizing we're passing on trauma, whether it's your parent beat you with a belt and that was their form of discipline. So when you have a child, you think, well, this is what my dad did to me, and you do it to them because you have not taken it to relearn, but forgetting how that felt and did it really hurt? I mean, help you.
Well,
So we have to recognize that.
this is a question for either you or Aisha. What would you say to the population out there that when you express loving self more, when they don't know how to do that, when they don't, because from childhood, toddler age to birth, all they dealt with was traumatic injury. We are blank slates when we're born, and in essence, what we're surrounded by can become a part of our makeup, mind,
I,
body, and spirit. So, what would you ladies say to those individuals out there who don't know how to do this, and then they end up following what they may see on social media or what they may hear from their friends, which are false information, and then they take that type of lifestyle into their reality in relationships, whether it's with a lover, spouse, or friend, family member. They don't know the essence of it. How would you um,
I
instruct
would,
a client to redefine themselves, discover love for themselves? When, in essence, we learn this from when we're old enough to have our minds wrapped around what is love. How do I love myself?
I would say first is recognizing that that is your truth, taking the mask off and still trying to act and say. And in a healing process and healing journey, coming from a spiritual laws of attraction, however you want to say it, when you're ready to heal and say and humble yourself and say, I'm ready to heal, but I don't know how,
Mm-hmm.
the healers will come, they will be in your path. You automatically divinely will connect. You have to be willing to honor it, to say, this is the help that I need, first of all. And you may say, I don't know how to love myself, but I need help with this. And I'm willing to, and that trust of finding someone that you can actually be vulnerable to say, I don't love myself. So therefore, I would say that is when the journey of finding a therapist, and even finding a therapist, you have Psychology Today sites, you have Black Girls Therapy. You can go and see
Mm-hmm.
who you relate to, read their bios to see what it is that they stand for that you feel you can connect to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Therapy, I definitely say getting in contact with your body more. So trauma, as when I became a yoga teacher, was part of it. I wanted to also find another way to help African American women, women of color, reconnect with their bodies. And that is where we often hold our trauma. So becoming a yoga teacher was another way to be a face that we can't do yoga. You know, our bodies may not be able to do certain things the curvy ways and stuff, but I wanted to be an example of that. But what I found in my yoga classes was they were breaking down crying. And I'm like, what? This is supposed to be relaxing. What is occurring here? But they felt safe because of the atmosphere. They were releasing trauma because we hold trauma in our joints, our shoulders, our hips, our knees, our ankles. That's where most trauma gets stuck. So more movement and all of that helps to release. So that's why when we talk about trauma, we understand. And as you come from your perspective in the medical field, we have to find different ways of dealing with trauma. So the therapy aspect, the movement, the yoga. Aisha, tell them about dance and mindfulness, because that's another class we're going to start offering that I think is so wonderful. Tell them about how that helps with trauma and releasing trauma.
Right. Well, the way I structure it is given prompts for you to go back to your childhood and through movement that you might have done in your childhood, movement you might have been restricted in your childhood, just to see how it feels in your body. And if your body can't move in a certain type of way, when those prompts come up, it's that trauma that's stuck in there, right? And you're bringing that stuff up and you're getting that out. and it leads to, oh wow, okay, this is affecting me, let me process this more. And like Shay was asking about, like, what can people do when they're like, oh, I don't even know how to love myself. One, take away those stereotypes, and what media tells you, like, you should have known this before you got in your 30s, or like, you're 50 now, you should have gotten this when you were a child. If you ain't get it, you ain't get it. It's
Right.
okay. Like, there is
It's
never too
okay.
late to connect back into it. And learning
Absolutely.
to love self, it looks like learning to love your body. So that looks like yoga. That looks like being able to
Mhm.
connect in a dance class.
Yes.
And
Releasing the perceptions of the world and like you said, going inward to what feels good and what heals you without an age,
absolutely.
without a gender, without, all of that. And I think being it goes back to your true authentic self, but that's scary for many people. In order to, if we've had the mask of hiding traumas for so long, you might have forgotten who you are. And so you're scared to really
Absolutely.
go to anybody. And when you lead or deal with the after effect of trauma, it is that process where I say having that therapist to help you reconnect with that person that you lost at that point in time of the trauma. And I think that's how I approach. We do chakra therapy, where we go to find out where that trauma occurred, what energy developmental center was occurring at that time that is still impacting you now, like the root chakra. If something happened to you from birth to age 6 or 7, that sense of trust and having a safety in the world, you're gonna grow up and then feeling like you don't trust anybody and never know why you don't trust anybody. And it can start from a traumatic event that happened then. Or for like clients that come with anxiety, remember anxiety at age 5?
Yeah, yeah,
That could have been some trauma from the womb. This is
yeah.
where we have to understand there is layers to trauma, that if you're dealing with those type of feelings, excessive nervousness and anxiety at 4,
Hmm.
5, and 6, which sometimes is misdiagnosed as ADHD, we got to go back, as we sometimes go back and look at what was that mother's pregnancy, what was the birthing process, what was the mother experiencing at that time that was producing those genetic imprints into the womb. So
Absolutely. And that's true. That's very
we can
true.
go
Because I
on
see.
and on, but
Yeah,
we have to
yeah.
look at trauma in layers, and the first step is acknowledging it so that we can heal from the body, as what you have seen in the medical field. When you really talk to clients, you see they're suppressing some emotional things. I think, like Aisha, when we really get to our clients, we were like, oh, we see where that first imprint, but they don't see it. Now, as therapists, we can't technically tell them that's it right there, because that misses the whole point of them really seeing it. But from the outside, you're like, oh, they so close. If they could just connect the dots and see, but that's the whole process of helping the dots to connect. And it's not always easy. It's not always easy of reconnecting the body with the mind after dealing with chronic pain. And I have to speak on that for people that deal with chronic pain, because you disconnect from the body in order to deal with the pain.
And
And
speaking of that, you had mentioned that your clients, some of them break down in tears when they're doing their particular yoga postures. These could be these may be very well the clients that are dealing with chronic pain or some type of emotional trauma. And with certain body movements, depending on what part of that midbrain is affected, and you do that body movement, you're actually breaking away the toxins and you're bringing about healing to that particular type of that particular part of the body or that emotional turmoil that they might be going through. So it's released through pain. I'm sorry, it's released through crying or tears or some type of emotion that brings about joy. So yoga is very important. Dancing is very important when it comes to healing, and people don't realize that. Music, listening to music, that's important. Uplifting music, that is.
I
That's
think with
important.
this question that was posted, how can you identify trauma triggers instead of just thinking it's frustrations or having a bad day? Woo, because that's a biggie, not realizing that you've been triggered and you just think everybody out to get you in the world. And it's that moment of going through healing that you realize, oh, it was me. It was how I was responding to things.
Yeah,
It's you
that's a
think
good
the whole world is out to
question.
get you. But that
Yeah,
that is a good question. But identifying, I would say one thing's of the body yoga, because in yoga you connect with your body, and your body can talk to you when it's off, and how you feel, where you're tense at. That's really what trauma is. First thing is recognize how you tense up. As Shay can say, riding with me, honey, I was over there on the passenger side with my own brake. I had my
And
own
I was
brake
10,
on that
10
side of
miles per
the car.
hour. 10 miles per hour.
I had my own brake, and when I got out the car, I was tense. I was tight. Do you hear me? You weren't braking quick enough. But really, but recognizing the body. But even from that, now I laugh, but I have to sit there and just, okay, relax. And I realize the whole right side of me is tense because I'm trying to break. So that mind body work is very key on and working through traumas.
Yeah.
Even because you have to understand how you respond to the emotional trigger, because that's what the memory is. Your body has muscle memory of how to respond when that incident occurs. So it automatically does that, which can sometimes cause more injury to your body. And that's why hypnosis is good for some of those to help deal with trauma, to reconnect. I used to tell them, I mean, you do EMDR, which is a evidence-based technique to help people process trauma. Tell them a little bit about what EMDR does to help decrease the triggers to trauma.
Right. So it doesn't take the trigger away or the traumatic event away, but it helps you reprocess that event and store it in your brain where it's not as what it helps you desensitize to it. So where it may have thrown you off for a whole day and it caused you to like deregulate, when you go through the EMDR process, it helps you to restore that same exact memory, but you don't
Mhm.
have this huge response to it. And that's our goal. A lot of people are scared of trauma therapy because
They don't want to feel it all
right,
over again.
and
Right.
Yeah.
we know we can't make that event go away. Like we can't go back into the past and
Hmm.
make it like erase that. It's still going to be there, but the goal is to make it not take us out of ourselves.
So
Hmm.
I'm
We want
thinking about what you just said, that you explained that technique. And for example, for myself, I like to do extracurricular activities like hiking or listening to soothing music or do mindful walking, breath work. What is it essential to say that when you're doing this technique that you use those type of modalities, movement, listening to pleasant sounds, just enhancing the senses in a more positive way in order for the client to feel the emotion initially that they felt when the trauma happened, but actually add something in that's more pleasurable while they're still thinking, experiencing that body sensation,
You're
so that
replacing
when
the
they
imprint. Yes,
exactly
replacing
imprinting
the
something
imprint.
different. Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, all
And
right.
that's why there's certain modalities. Like Johnny Moses is a practitioner here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he does a lot of the body work and even understanding of how you not being able to lift your arm a certain length could come from a traumatic event that happened when you was 13, that's locked in that emotion, and that learning
Mhm.
to release it gave the flexibility back. So that's why often, as we know, when people are dealing with issue, we ask, is it the left side, is the right side? Is it something with your feminine energy or the masculine energy? Is it dealing with flexibility? It's, we have to even look at how the body is talking to even understand to express. So often for a lot of clients that have trauma, they don't know the emotional words to use. So I will go to, what is the body feeling? What is your ankle feeling? What is your knee feeling? And if the knee say it's stiff, if the ankle feel like it feels weak, if the stomach feel
Mhm.
like it's such and such, then I repeat it back. And often what your body said is really what you're feeling. So again, mind body connection is going to be key, because that's when you realize, or you realize, when I think of this, I tighten up. Oh, I didn't even know I was
Yeah,
tight.
and
That's where
also
you start that release in the body.
that's
And that's how you start to love the body, by paying attention to it, not being mad at it, not being
yeah,
angry, causes you to tighten up or go in protection mode. For those who traumas, that tightness is your subconscious body of saying, I'm protected. So when I've done work with clients and have them go into mountain pose and stand up straight, they bust out crying because they
yeah.
feel vulnerable. So
Yeah.
yes, making that connection with the mind and body is going to be key. And if it's something that's occurring that you feel you always get triggered at, and I always say the shadow work comes in. That one thing people say about you all the time that pisses you off when they say it and you want to fight them, that's the shadow work. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why when people, and if they say, why they keep saying I act like that and I don't act like that, I've been hearing that forever. That's the shadow work to go back and address that is something you're trying to cover up that sometimes can manifest into trauma. And so if there are certain topics, certain information that you would like to have more of, please let us know.
Okay. She'll pop back in
And
a
I guess
minute.
that
Her.
means it's time to come to a close. And they done told us it's time to shut it down. So we've been on
Okay.
here for an hour. But for those that have been listening and entertained by us at a Shakti Wellness, we thank you. We want to do this once a month on different topics. So if there are certain things that you would like to hear more discussion about, more treatment modalities on how to deal with certain things from a holistic approach, or just more knowledge. I know one thing, we're talking about abuse and trauma, and this is what I even say to those, how it shows up in different ways. You got to address it, because even for my clinicians, let me tell you, if we're not working through our traumas, they show up in your clients
Yeah.
and can be triggers for you as well. So those that are helping others, and part of the reason we even go into the helping profession in this aspect probably has something to do with what we may have experienced. So we have to be careful. We don't have counter transference. So it's hitting on different ways. And so if there are certain topics, certain information that you would like to have more of, please let us know. Go to our website, check us out, send us information. If it's something of services you would like to try or know more about, we're doing the therapy. Shay here does holistic health consultations and can help assist you in what's going on and give you a holistic approach. Aisha does the dance of mindfulness class and is a trauma therapist as well, working with adolescents and couples as well. So we thank you all and hope to see you next month. Next week, I do have a webinar. If you go to my website, where I'll be presenting more on the topics of what is holistic health and what does that look like, and how to address different imbalances we're having from a holistic approach. So thank you guys. It's been a pleasure. Deuces.
Peace. Bye.
Bye.